Hey guys, tonight we begin with something quieter, darker, and infinitely colder than anything you've ever experienced. We are heading to the frozen forests of Finland in 1939, to the Winter War. A conflict where the enemy wasn't just the opposing army, but the air itself. A place where the temperature drops so low that reality starts to warp and human biology simply gives up. So before you get comfortable under your warm blankets, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what the temperature is there right now. I guarantee it's tropical compared to where we're going. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations! You have just stepped off a transport truck and into the Karelian Isthmus. The year is 1939. The good news is that you are alive. The bad news is that the thermometer currently reads minus 40 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, the concept of cold ceases to exist. It is replaced by pain. The moment you step outside, the air hits you like a physical blow, a solid wall of invisible ice that knocks the wind right out of you. You instinctively gasp, a big mistake. The air is so dry and so frigid that inhaling it feels less like breathing and more like swallowing a mouthful of broken glass. Your lungs spasm, your throat tightens, and your body's internal alarm system immediately starts screaming that you have made a terrible error. You try to close your mouth and breathe through your nose, but that's where the real horror starts. You know that moisture inside your nostrils? The dampness you never think about? It freezes. Instantly. You feel a distinct, crunchy prickling sensation inside your nose as the tiny hairs and the mucus turn into little needles of ice. Every time you flare your nostrils, it feels like the inside of your face is cracking. Your eyes water from the stinging wind, but the tears don't roll down your cheeks. They freeze on your eyelashes, gluing your eyelids together if you blink too slowly. You are now blinking through a veil of ice crystals. You look down at your hands. If you were foolish enough to take off a glove to adjust your gear, you have about 60 seconds before your dexterity vanishes. 2 minutes before the pain becomes unbearable. 5 minutes before the frostbite sets in deep enough to cost you a finger. The cold here is aggressive. It is a predator. It hunts for any exposed strip of skin, a wrist between a glove and a sleeve, a neck exposed by a loose scarf, and it bites it. The skin doesn't just get cold, it burns. It turns waxy and white, the blood retreating so fast into your core that your extremities feel like they belong to a corpse. And the silence. You've never heard silence like this. The extreme cold freezes everything, even sound. The snow doesn't dampen noise, it swallows it. There are no birds. No rustling leaves. The trees are frozen statues, their branches weighed down by heavy, wet snow that has hardened into concrete. The only sound is the blood rushing in your ears and the terrifying, high-pitched creak of the snow under your boots. That sound, the squeak of dry, frozen powder, is loud. Too loud. In this white void, that crunch sounds like a gunshot. You stand there, shivering violently as your body tries to generate heat that simply evaporates into the gray sky. You are a tiny, warm, biological anomaly in a world designed to be dead. And you realize with a sinking feeling in your frozen gut that you haven't even seen the enemy yet. The landscape itself is trying to kill you. And it has only been 5 minutes. But if you think the air is bad, just wait until you see what you have to wear to survive it.
So you're standing there, your nostrils freezing shut, realizing that your skin is currently losing a war against the atmosphere. It is time to get dressed. And if you think the cold was bad, wait until you meet the wardrobe. In 1939, there is no Gore-Tex, no moisture-wicking synthetic blends, and absolutely no battery-heated vests. There is only wool. Rough, heavy, scratchy wool that smells faintly of wet sheep and despair. You start with the base layer, which is less like clothing and more like a full-body hair shirt designed for medieval penance. It itches instantly, and it never stops. You pull on thick wool socks that make your feet look like loaves of bread, then wool trousers that weigh 5 pounds, then a wool tunic, and maybe a sweater knitted by someone who clearly hated you. By the time you are fully dressed, you look and feel like a stuffed sausage. Your range of motion is reduced to that of a toddler in a snowsuit. You can't bend your arms fully. Turning your head requires rotating your entire torso. But here is the kicker. You are going to sweat. You are trudging through waist-deep snow, carrying a rifle and gear, and despite the sub-zero air, your body is overheating inside this wool cocoon. And in the Arctic, sweat is not just gross, it is lethal. If that layer of moisture against your skin freezes, and it will, it forms a layer of ice directly on your body. You're essentially wearing a suit of frost armor that slowly sucks the heat out of your organs. You are cooking and freezing at the exact same time. Then comes the camouflage, the legendary White Death. It sounds ghostly and terrifying, right? In reality, it is a bedsheet. You are essentially going to war wearing your grandmother's linens. You pull on a white hooded oversuit that is meant to blend in with the snowdrifts. It's baggy, it catches on branches, and it stains instantly. Gun oil, dirt, pine sap, and eventually blood, everything shows up on white. Keeping it clean is impossible, so after a week, you don't look like a ghost. You look like a dirty laundry pile that learned how to shoot. And it offers zero warmth. It is just a thin layer of cotton separating you from being spotted by a Soviet tank. And finally, the boots. The most dangerous part of your outfit. You might have felt boots, or if you're unlucky, leather ones. Leather freezes hard as rock. If your feet swell from the marching, the boots cut off your circulation. If you lose circulation at minus 40 degrees, frostbite sets in within minutes. You have to keep wiggling your toes, constantly, every second of the day, just to remind your body that they still exist. If you stop wiggling, you lose them. It is a constant low-level panic in the back of your mind. Are my toes numb because they are cold? Or are they numb because they are dead? You won't know until you take the boots off. And by then, it's usually too late. You are essentially walking around in 2 ticking time bombs made of frozen leather. But hey, at least you're dressed. Now you just have to survive a world where the sun has decided to clock out for the winter. You have your wool layers, your white bedsheet camouflage, and your death trap boots. You are ready to face the day. Except, there is no day. Welcome to the latitude of the Arctic Circle in December, where the sun is less of a celestial body and more of a rumor. In the Winter War, the sun is a lazy, distant relative who shows up late, offers absolutely no warmth, and leaves before you've even had lunch. You might get, if you were lucky, 4 to 5 hours of what scientists call daylight, but do not let that word fool you. It isn't bright, it isn't sunny, it is a dull, flat, oppressive gray twilight that makes the world look like a faded photograph. The sun barely drags itself above the tree line, casts long, distorted shadows that look like enemy soldiers, and then dips back below the horizon by mid-afternoon. For the other 19 hours of the day, you are living in a void. It is a darkness so complete, so heavy, that it feels physical. In the forest, the pine trees block out the stars, creating a canopy of absolute blackness.
You lose all sense of time. Your internal clock, the circadian rhythm that tells you when to be awake and when to sleep, is smashed to pieces within the first 48 hours. You find yourself staring at your watch, squinting in the gloom, trying to figure out if it is 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., and realizing it doesn't actually matter. The cold is the same. The danger is the same. The darkness is the same. This eternal night does something terrible to the human brain. Humans are not nocturnal predators. We are scared little monkeys that need the sun to tell us we are safe. When you take that away, paranoia moves into the empty space. You start seeing things. That stump over there, in the pitch black, it looks exactly like a crouching Russian soldier. That swaying branch, it's a rifle barrel. Your eyes strain so hard against the dark, trying to pull photons out of nothing, that your brain starts inventing images just to keep itself occupied. You spend hours staring at a patch of black snow, convinced it moved. Your heart hammers against your ribs, adrenaline spiking, keeping you awake, keeping you terrified, until the gray dawn finally breaks and you realize you'd been terrified of a bush for 6 hours. And then there are the flares. Every so often, the enemy launches a magnesium flare into the sky. For 30 seconds, the world explodes into a blinding, artificial white light. It is brighter than noon, casting stark, dancing shadows that swing wildly across the snow. You freeze. You have to. If you move while the flare is up, your shadow will give you away instantly. So you become a statue, holding your breath, eyes burning from the sudden brilliance. Then the flare dies, and the darkness snaps back, even harder than before. You are instantly blind. Your night vision is gone, ruined by the chemical light, and for the next 20 minutes, you are helpless, stumbling in the black, waiting for your retinas to recover. This is your life now. You are a creature of the dark, existing in a frozen limbo where the sun has abandoned you. You are tired, your eyes hurt, and your mind is slowly unraveling from the sensory deprivation. You want nothing more than to close your eyes and sleep, just to escape the gloom. But then you look down at the ground where you were supposed to rest, and you realize that bed is a generous term for what awaits you. Because the ground isn't just cold, it is harder than the iron in your rifle.
So you're exhausted. Your brain is frying from the paranoia and your legs feel like lead pipes. It is time to sleep. But look at the ground. At minus 40 degrees, the earth isn't soil anymore. It is a solid, unyielding block of frozen hate. You could hit it with a pickaxe, and the pickaxe would shatter before the dirt did. You cannot dig a foxhole. You cannot hide in the earth. So you have to sleep in the very thing that is trying to kill you, the snow. You find a deep drift, maybe 4 or 5 feet high, and you start digging. Not down, but sideways, like a scared freezing badger. You are making a snow cave. It sounds cozy, doesn't it? Like an igloo in a holiday cartoon. It isn't. It is a coffin made of ice. Once you've hollowed out a space just big enough to curl into a tight fetal ball, you need insulation. You frantically hack at the nearby pine trees, dragging heavy sap-covered boughs into your hole. This is your mattress. Sharp, sticky pine needles that poke through your wool layers and stab you in the ribs. You pile them up, praying it is enough to keep your body heat from leaching straight into the permafrost beneath you. It won't be, but it's better than lying directly on the ice. But you don't sleep alone. Oh no, solitude is a death sentence out here. You crawl into this claustrophobic hole with 2 or 3 other men. You pack in tight, limb over limb, face to back, sharing body heat like a desperate litter of puppies. It is intimate, uncomfortable, and smells absolutely horrific. You are breathing in the sour breath of the man facing you, smelling the unwashed wool, gun oil, and old sweat of the man behind you. You are tangled in a mass of heavy limbs and cold rifles, trying to find a position that doesn't cut off blood flow to your already freezing feet. If the guy in the middle needs to pee, nobody moves. He holds it. You all hold it. Because moving breaks the seal of warmth, and breaking the seal is a tragedy.
And then the fear sets in. You know that sleep is dangerous. If your core temperature drops too low while you are unconscious, you won't wake up shivering. You just won't wake up. You will drift from a dream about a warm fire straight into cardiac arrest. It is called the warm death, where the freezing mind hallucinates heat right before the end. So you lie there, half awake, terrified that if you close your eyes for too long, you will become just another frozen lump under the snow to be found in spring. You drift in and out of a shallow, jerky nightmare, listening to the wind howl outside your little cave, waiting for a morning that will barely be brighter than the night. And then, suddenly, the wind stops. The howling dies down. The trees stop creaking. And you are left with something even worse than the cold, even worse than the dark. You are left with the silence, a silence so profound, so absolute, that it feels like the air itself has been sucked out of the world. And in that silence, you realize that the loudest thing in the forest isn't a gun or a bomb. It's something much smaller, and it is about to give your position away to every enemy within a mile.
The wind dies. The trees stop groaning. And suddenly, the world falls into a silence so heavy, it feels like it has physical weight. You might think silence is peaceful. In the modern world, silence is a luxury. In the Winter War, silence is a threat. It is the sound of a predator holding its breath. Because in this deep freeze, the laws of acoustics change. The air is dense, heavy, and terrifyingly efficient at carrying sound waves. A shout that would normally travel 100 yards now carries for a mile. A cough sounds like a grenade going off. And the snow? The snow is the biggest traitor of all. At minus 40 degrees, snow stops acting like soft, fluffy powder. It changes molecularly. It becomes dry, abrasive, and structurally more like sand or styrofoam than water. When you step on it, it doesn't squish, it screams. It emits a high-pitched, distinctive creak, a dry, grinding crunch that cuts through the stillness like a knife through canvas. It is a sound that sets your teeth on edge, but more importantly, it is a sound that travels. If you take a step, the enemy hears it. If you shift your weight because your legs are cramping, the enemy hears it. If you so much as adjust your grip on your rifle, the snow under your elbow crunches, and suddenly you are a beacon on a radar screen. This creates a psychological torture that is hard to describe. You are freezing to death, and your body's natural reaction is to move, to shiver, to stomp your feet, to rub your arms. But you can't. You have to override millions of years of evolutionary survival instinct and remain perfectly, painfully still. You become hyper-aware of your own biology. Your heartbeat sounds like a drum in your ears. The fabric of your wool trousers rubbing together sounds like sandpaper on a microphone. The click of a safety catch being released is loud enough to make you wince. You find yourself holding your breath until your lungs burn, just to avoid the soft hiss of an exhale. And you know the Russians are doing the same thing. Somewhere out there in the black and white void, there are thousands of men listening. They are listening for the snap of a twig, the squeak of a boot, the rattle of a mess kit. The forest becomes a high-stakes game of musical statues where the loser gets a mortar round dropped on their head. You start to hate your own gear. That metal canteen, it clanks. That leather strap, it creaks. You wrap everything in cloth, you tape down buckles, but the noise always finds a way out. The silence transforms the forest into a paranoid echo chamber. You hear a sound, a soft crunch, 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 and your blood runs cold. Is it a patrol? Is it a sniper positioning himself? You stare into the gloom, finger on the trigger, waiting for the muzzle flash, and then a shape emerges from the shadows. It's a reindeer or a fox, and you almost laugh, but you can't because laughing makes noise. So you just exhale, the steam rising from your lips, and realize that you have spent the last hour pointing a gun at a woodland creature because the snow made its footsteps sound like an invading army. But the silence has taught you one thing. If you want to survive, you cannot be a soldier. You cannot be a man. You have to become a rock. You have to learn to turn off your muscles, turn off your nerves, and exist in a state of suspended animation. Because out here, movement is noise, and noise is death. And to stay quiet, you are going to have to master the most painful skill of all, the art of doing absolutely nothing while your body screams at you to run.
You have found your spot, a slight depression in a snowbank, shadowed by a frozen spruce tree. You lay down your gear, smooth out the snow, and lower yourself onto your stomach. You settle the rifle stock against your shoulder, align your body, and freeze. You are now a statue. And for the next 6 hours, you are not allowed to be human. At first, it feels manageable. You are focused, adrenaline humming in your veins, scanning the tree line for the gray silhouette of a Soviet coat. But after 20 minutes, the reality of your situation begins to sink in. The human body was designed to move. It is a machine of hydraulics and leverage meant for walking, running, and climbing. It was absolutely not designed to lie prone on a block of ice for a quarter of a day without twitching. The rebellion starts in your elbows. They are digging into the hard-packed snow, bearing the weight of your upper body and your heavy Mosin Nagant rifle. The pain starts as a dull ache, then sharpens into a burning throb, as if someone is slowly driving a nail into your funny bone. You want to shift, just an inch, just to relieve the pressure. But you can't. Because shifting means the snow crunches. Shifting means your white camouflage cape ripples. Shifting means the sniper watching from the other side of the clearing puts a bullet through your helmet. So you let your elbows burn. You accept the pain as your new baseline reality.
Then comes the itch. It starts on your nose, or maybe right between your shoulder blades, the one spot you couldn't reach even if you were free to move. It starts as a tickle, then grows into a consuming, maddening fire. Your brain fixates on it. It screams at you to scratch. It tells you that if you don't scratch, you will go insane. You have to use every ounce of your willpower to ignore a sensation that is purely psychological, while your actual physical body is slowly turning into a popsicle. You visualize the itch burning away. You meditate on the concept of nothingness. You hate the itch with the fury of 1,000 suns, but you do not move a muscle. By hour 3, the cold has bypassed your clothes and is attacking your joints. Your knees, pressed into the permafrost, feel like they have rusted shut. Your lower back has seized up into a rigid knot of tension. You realize with a grim certainty that when you eventually try to stand up, your body might simply refuse. You are not just cold, you are calcifying. The blood in your veins feels like it has turned to slush, moving sluggishly through your limbs, barely keeping the tissue alive. You are maintaining a level of stillness that mimics death so closely that a passing raven might actually land on you to check if you are edible. And the boredom. It is a weapon. You are staring at the same 3 pine trees, the same patch of gray sky, the same endless white void. Your mind starts to wander, hallucinating warmth, imagining the smell of coffee, replaying memories of summer. This is dangerous. If you daydream, you lose focus. If you lose focus, you miss the enemy. Or worse, you fall asleep. And as we've established, sleeping in this position is a one-way ticket to hypothermia. So you have to keep your mind sharp while your body screams in agony, trapped in a prison of your own making. You are a biological entity fighting a war against physics, biology, and patience. You are in a contest of suffering. The winner isn't the one who shoots the straightest. It's the one who can endure the most misery without flinching. You lie there, tears of cold freezing on your face, your muscles vibrating with the effort of holding still, knowing that the only thing harder than not moving is what you have to do next. Because as your body heat creates a tiny microclimate around your face, you realize you have a new problem. You are breathing. And at minus 40 degrees, breathing creates a cloud of steam that looks like a signal fire to the enemy. To survive, you're going to have to stop that steam. And the only way to do it is going to hurt. You are a steam engine in a world that hunts warmth. Every time you exhale, a thick, white plume of vapor billows out from your face. In the civilian world, this is just a sign that it's winter. In the sniper's world, it is a neon sign pointing directly at your head that says, "Here I am, please kill me." That cloud of steam rises above your hiding spot, drifting lazily against the dark trees, a perfect target marker for a Soviet spotter with a pair of binoculars. You can't stop breathing, though you've tried, so you have to change the temperature of your breath. You have to cool it down before it leaves your body. And the only coolant available is the ground. So you reach out with a stiff gloved hand, scoop up a dense clump of snow, and shove it into your mouth. If you have ever bitten into ice cream too fast, multiply that sensation by 100 and add the flavor of dirt and pine needles. The pain is instant and shocking. It isn't a dull ache. It is a sharp electric jolt that shoots straight up into your sinuses and behind your eyes. It feels like you have just bitten down on a live wire. Your teeth, already sensitive from the cold, scream in protest as the enamel contracts. The roof of your mouth feels like it is being peeled off. Your gums go numb within seconds, transforming your mouth into a frozen cavern where you lose all sense of touch. You try to position the snow so it doesn't touch your sensitive teeth, but it melts, and the freezing water washes over everything, finding every cavity, every nerve ending. But it works. You exhale and nothing. No steam, no cloud. Your breath is now as cold as the air around you. You have successfully camouflaged your own biology. But the cost is internal. You are now swallowing freezing water, actively lowering your core temperature from the inside out. You can feel the icy trickle moving down your throat, settling in your stomach like a lead weight, stealing the precious little heat your body has managed to hoard. You are essentially speed-running hypothermia to avoid a bullet. And you have to keep doing it. The snow melts fast in a warm mouth. So every few minutes, you have to pack another cheek full of ice. Your jaw muscles begin to cramp from the cold. Your lips turn blue and stiff, making it hard to swallow without drooling.
You develop a splitting headache, a permanent brain freeze that pulses behind your forehead, distracting you, nagging at you. But you can't stop. If you spit it out, the steam returns. If you stop packing it in, you die. So you lie there, nursing a mouthful of slush, your head pounding, your stomach churning, realizing that the most dangerous thing in this war isn't the enemy's aim. It's your own body's need to be warm. You have mastered the art of being invisible. You are silent, you are still, and now you are breathless. You are a ghost. But being a ghost has a downside. You can't use the tools of the living. You look down at your rifle, at the expensive high-tech telescopic scope attached to the top, and you realize it's useless. Actually, it's worse than useless. It's a death trap. Because in this frozen hellscape, trying to see the enemy better is the quickest way to make sure they see you first.
You look at that scope mounted on your rifle. It's a beautiful piece of optical engineering, a tube of glass and steel designed to make the impossible shot possible. In any other war, it would be your best friend. In the Winter War, it is a traitor waiting to get you killed. You reach for the mounting screws with your numb, clumsy fingers, and you tear it off. You throw it into the snow. You are going to do this the hard way. You are going to use the iron sights. Why would you handicap yourself like that? Because of the light. In the Arctic winter, the sun never rises high. It skims the horizon, sending long, low beams of light cutting through the forest. If just one of those beams hits the curved glass lens of your scope, it creates a reflection, a glint, a tiny momentary flash of light in a world of dull grays and whites. To the Soviet sniper scanning the tree line 500 yards away, that glint isn't a mistake. It is a lighthouse. It is a signal flare that says, "I am right here." You don't get a warning. You don't get a second chance. You get a bullet through the eye before you even hear the shot. And it's not just the light. It's the height. To look through a scope, you have to lift your head. You have to crane your neck up those extra 2 or 3 inches to align your eye with the tube. In a war measured in millimeters, 3 inches is a mountain. It exposes the curve of your helmet. It exposes the pale skin of your cheek. It breaks the silhouette of the snowdrift you have spent hours merging with. By using iron sights, just that tiny, jagged nub of metal at the end of the barrel, you can keep your cheek pressed hard against the frozen wood of the stock. You can keep your head down, buried in your collar, presenting a target no bigger than a grapefruit to the enemy.
Then there is the fog. Remember your body heat, the heat you are desperately trying to keep inside? Your eye is warm. It is a wet, heated ball of jelly. The glass of the scope is minus 40 degrees. When you bring your eye close to the lens, physics takes over. The moisture from your eye socket hits the freezing glass and instantly turns into condensation. Frost blooms across the lens, blinding you. You can't see the enemy. You're staring into a white fog bank. And you can't just wipe it off with your sleeve because that's movement. That's a hand waving in the air. That's death. With iron sights, there is no glass to fog. There is just open air and cold metal. It is primitive, it is crude, and it works. But this decision comes with a terrifying price. Without magnification, you cannot shoot from the safety of distance. You cannot be a mile away, detached and safe. You have to get close, uncomfortably, horrifically close. To hit a moving target with iron sights in dim light, you have to be within 300 meters. 200 is better. You have to be close enough to see the color of their uniforms, close enough to distinguish between a man and a tree trunk, close enough that if the wind shifts, you might smell their cheap tobacco smoke.
You're trading safety for stealth, forcing yourself into an intimate, claustrophobic duel where you can practically hear the enemy breathing. So there you are. No scope, mouth full of ice, body frozen into a rictus of pain. You have the enemy in your sights. You are ready to take the shot that ends your 6-hour vigil. But physics has one last trap for you. The snow in front of your barrel is loose, dry powder. If you pull that trigger now, the muzzle blast is going to kick up a mini blizzard, a puff of white dust that will hang in the still air like a ghost, pointing a giant arrow right back at your face. You have one more preparation to make, and it involves destroying the pristine snow that is currently your only cover. You stare at the pristine, fluffy snow directly in front of your rifle barrel. It looks soft. It looks innocent. It is, in fact, the biggest snitch in the forest. You know exactly what happens when you pull that trigger. The bullet leaves the muzzle at supersonic speed, but it is not alone. It is followed by a violent, expanding sphere of hot gas and pressure. When that shockwave hits the loose, dry powder sitting inches from the end of your gun, it doesn't just push it aside. It vaporizes it into a fine mist. It creates a snow puff, a momentary white cloud that billows up about 2 feet into the air. In the stagnant, windless cold of the deep woods, that cloud doesn't blow away. It hangs there. It lingers like a ghost, pointing a spectral finger right at your face. And to the Soviet counter-sniper scanning the tree line with binoculars, that puff is better than a muzzle flash. A flash lasts a millisecond. The puff lasts long enough for him to calculate the distance, adjust his sights, and turn your head into a canoe. So you have to ruin the snow. You have to kill the fluff. You have to compact the area in front of your barrel into a hard, lifeless sheet of ice that won't flinch when the gun goes off. You slowly, agonizingly slide your hands out from under your body. You can't rise up to do this. You have to work from the prone position, reaching forward like a swimmer doing the breaststroke in a frozen lake. You gather the snow in front of you and you start to pack it. You press down with your gloved fists, putting all your upper body weight into the motion. You aren't just patting it down, you are trying to change its state of matter. You mash the crystals together, forcing the air out, turning the soft powder into a dense, hard slab. The sound is excruciating, a wet, crunching grind that sounds like bones breaking wrapped in a towel. You pause every few seconds, listening, terrified that the noise has traveled. Nothing but silence. You keep packing. Your shoulders burn. Your gloves, now covered in snow, start to freeze stiff, the leather hardening into a claw shape. But packing isn't enough. Dry snow is stubborn. If you really want to be safe, you need ice. If you have a canteen, and if the water inside hasn't frozen solid yet, you pour a precious trickle over the packed ramp. The reaction is instant. In minus 40-degree air, the water doesn't soak in, it snap freezes. It glazes over the snow, creating a hard, slick crust. If you don't have water, or if you are too afraid to reach for your canteen, you use the only moisture you have left. You spit. You gather whatever thick, dehydrated saliva you can muster, and you spit on the snow, rubbing it in with your thumb, creating a grotesque little patch of cement. Now look at what you've made. In front of your rifle, there is no longer beautiful white powder. There is a dark, gray, ugly scar of ice. It stands out against the white background. It looks unnatural. It reflects the weak light differently than the surrounding drifts. This is the gamble. You have traded the risk of the puff for the risk of the patch. You pray that the enemy is looking for movement,
not landscaping anomalies. You slide your rifle back into position. The cold steel barrel rests on the hard shelf you've created. You check your sight picture. You check your breath, still holding the snow in your mouth. You check your toes, still wiggling. You are ready. The physics of the shot are managed. The biology of your body is suppressed. Now, finally, you can do the job. You stop looking at the snow and start looking at the men. You watch them for hours. You watch them eat, argue, and shiver. And you realize that before you pull the trigger, you're going to get to know them intimately. You settle your cheek against the frozen wooden stock of the rifle. The iron sight, that tiny black post of metal, hovers over a world that is completely unaware of your existence. Through the notch, you see them, the enemy. They are less than 300 meters away, a distance so short that in a city you could shout and be heard. Here, in the silence of the snow, they feel like they are in the same room with you. And this is where the job stops being about shooting and starts being about watching. You don't just pull the trigger the moment you see movement. That is how amateurs die. You wait. You observe. You become a voyeur of death. You pick a target. Let's say it's the man standing near the edge of the clearing, stamping his feet. He is wearing a heavy brown greatcoat that stands out against the white snow like an ink stain on a wedding dress. You watch him. You watch him for an hour. You learn his rhythm. He stomps his left foot, then his right. Then he rubs his gloved hands together. Then he adjusts his hat. Left, right, rub, hat. Left, right, rub, hat. You memorize this cycle. You know exactly when he is going to be still and exactly when he is going to move. You know him better than his own mother does right now. Then the wind shifts. It blows from their lines toward yours, carrying a scent that hits you like a physical slap. Tobacco. Cheap, harsh Russian mahorka. It smells acrid, like burning leaves and old socks. But to you, it smells like luxury. It smells like fire. You watch as the man fumbles in his pocket and pulls out a match. He strikes it. The tiny flare of orange light is shockingly bright in the gray gloom. He cups his hands, inhaling deep, and you see the glow of the cherry illuminate his face. He looks tired. He looks miserable. He looks human. And you hate him for it. Not because he is the enemy, but because he is warm. That tiny stick of burning tobacco represents a level of comfort you haven't felt in days. You are lying in a snow coffin, your mouth filled with ice, your bladder aching, your toes numb, while he gets to stand there and inhale smoke. You watch him joke with the man next to him. You see the steam of their laughter rising into the air. They are loud. They are careless. They are confident in their numbers, completely ignorant that a ghost is lying in a drift 200 yards away, decoding their hierarchy based on who salutes whom. You were looking for the officer. The man stamping his feet is just a sentry. Killing him alerts the hive without cutting off the head. You wait. Your muscles are screaming, spasming with the effort of holding the rifle steady. The ice in your mouth has melted, and you have to swallow the freezing water again, forcing yourself to scoop up another handful of snow without being seen. Finally, the tent flap opens. A man steps out. He isn't carrying a rifle. He has a pistol on his hip. He walks differently, arrogant, annoyed. He shouts at the smoker. The smoker straightens up. There. That's the one. You shift the iron sight a fraction of an inch. The black post moves from the smoker's chest to the officer's neck. You wait for the exhale. You wait for the heartbeat to slow. The world narrows down to a single point of focus. The cold disappears, the hunger disappears. There is only the sight, the target, and the trigger brake. You squeeze. The rifle kicks into your frozen shoulder, a dull thud rather than a sharp pain because your nerves are too dead to feel the bruise forming. The officer drops. The smoker freezes, confused, looking around, not understanding that the crack of the rifle was the sound of his commander dying. You don't wait to watch the panic. You don't wait for the return fire. You slide backward, deeper into your hole, dragging the rifle with you, disappearing into the white before the echo even fades. You have survived the shift. You have done the job. But now the adrenaline is crashing, and your body remembers something it forgot while you were hunting. You haven't eaten in 12 hours. And if you thought the cold was bad, wait until you see what passes for dinner in a foxhole made of ice.
The shivering stops. That is the moment you should be absolutely terrified. For the last 6 hours, your body has been a vibrating engine of misery, shaking itself apart to keep your heart beating. The silence of the muscles is not relief, it is surrender. Your hypothalamus, the part of your brain responsible for regulating temperature, has taken a look at your fuel reserves, checked the external temperature, and effectively said, "I quit." It throws the breakers. The constriction on your blood vessels releases, and suddenly you are hot. It starts as a flush in your chest, a wave of prickly heat that spreads down your arms and legs. It feels glorious. It feels like stepping into a hot bath after a long walk in the rain. You aren't just warm, you are burning up. Your brain, starved of oxygen and glucose, begins to interpret this flood of blood to the skin as a fever. You look down at your heavy wool tunic, your white camouflage, your scarf, and they feel suffocating. They feel like a cage. You have an overwhelming, irrational urge to take them off. This is called paradoxical undressing, and it is the last thing a human being does before they freeze to death. Then come the visuals. You look at the snow-covered spruce tree to your left. It isn't a tree anymore. It is a cast-iron stove. A beautiful black iron stove with a glass door, and inside you can see the orange dance of a wood fire. You can hear the crackle of the logs. You can feel the radiant heat hitting your face, melting the ice on your eyelashes. It is so real you could reach out and burn your hand on it. And the smells. The sterile masculine scent of the Arctic air vanishes. Suddenly you smell birchwood smoke. You smell roasting meat. You smell coffee, hot, strong black coffee. Your brain is rummaging through your memory banks, pulling out every sensation associated with safety and overlaying it onto the frozen landscape. You see your mother standing by the stove. She is holding a mug. She is smiling at you. She isn't wearing a coat, so it must be warm, right? She waves you over. "Come here," she seems to say. "Just rest for a minute. It's warm here." You smile. Your cracked blue lips pulled back over your teeth in a grotesque rictus of joy. You start to unbutton your tunic. Your fingers, which were useless claws 5 minutes ago, suddenly find the dexterity to undo the frozen wooden toggles. You pull the scarf from your neck and throw it into the snow. The air hits your skin, but it doesn't bite anymore. It feels like a cool breeze on a summer day. You want to lie down. You want to curl up next to that stove and just close your eyes for a second. The snow looks so soft, it looks like a feather bed. You are hallucinating your own salvation while actively participating in your own death. The stove is a tree. The coffee is the smell of your own dying nervous system. The warmth is your body venting its last remaining heat into the atmosphere. If you lie down now,
If you listen to the ghosts, you will never get up. You will be found in the spring, half naked, curled into a ball with a peaceful smile frozen onto your face. But you don't lie down, because just as you are about to surrender to the beautiful lie, the world shakes. The illusion shatters not because of willpower, but because of physics. The ground beneath you jumps 6 inches into the air. The stove disintegrates into a shower of pine needles and snow. The silence is ripped apart by a sound that is louder than God. It isn't a hallucination. It is the realest thing in the world. The Soviets know where you are. They saw the muzzle flash, they saw the steam, and they haven't sent a soldier to check. They have sent artillery. The peaceful death of hypothermia is off the table. You are about to experience the violent, chaotic end of the shift. The hunt is over. The bombardment has begun.
You slide deeper into the tree line, putting a few hundred yards of dense spruce between you and the body you just left in the snow. The adrenaline that kept you warm during the hunt is evaporating, leaving behind a hollow, shaking exhaustion. And with the crash comes the hunger. It hits you like a punch to the gut, a primal, gnawing emptiness that demands to be filled immediately. Your body has burned thousands of calories just trying to keep your blood liquid, and now it wants payment. You fumble with stiff, claw-like fingers to open your haversack. You aren't looking for a hot meal. There are no field kitchens here, no steaming pots of stew. You're looking for your ration of dry rye bread. You pull it out. It looks like food. It smells faintly of yeast and sour grain, but when you try to squeeze it, you realize the cruel joke of Arctic logistics. The bread is frozen. And we don't mean stale or crusty. We mean it has structurally transmuted into a geological formation. At minus 40 degrees, the moisture inside the dense rye loaf has crystallized into ice, binding the grain together into a substance that rivals granite. You could verify this by tapping it against the receiver of your rifle. It makes a sharp, metallic clack. If you ran out of ammo, you could genuinely use this loaf to bludgeon a man to death. It is a blunt force object disguised as carbohydrates. If you were foolish enough to try and take a bite right now, you wouldn't get fed. You would shatter your teeth, your jaw would snap shut, your molars would hit the unyielding surface, and you would be spitting out enamel shards into the snow. Dental emergencies in the wilderness are fatal. An infection in your gums will kill you just as dead as a Russian bullet, only much slower and with more throbbing. So you have to process the food. You have to mine it. You pull out your puukko, the traditional Finnish belt knife. You hold the loaf against your chest for leverage and start to shave it, whittling away thin, curling slivers of rye bread like you are carving a piece of hardwood. The sound is a dry rasp. The shavings fall into your gloved palm, looking more like sawdust than dinner. You tip the handful of icy crumbs into your mouth. They don't taste like bread yet. They taste like cold dust. You have to suck on them, letting your mouth's internal heat melt the ice crystals before you can even attempt to chew. It is a slow, miserable way to eat, consuming calories one wood shaving at a time. But shaving takes energy you don't have, so you resort to the human oven method. You take a chunk of the frozen brick and shove it into your armpit, inside your layers of wool. Or, if you are truly desperate, you tuck it into your groin. You are now using your own dying body heat to defrost your dinner. You can feel the block of ice sucking the warmth right out of your arteries, a parasitic lump of rye stealing your life force just so it can become soft enough to swallow. It takes 20 minutes to thaw a corner. You eat that corner, then rotate the loaf, shivering violently as the cold stone presses against your ribs. It tastes sour. It's gritty. It sits in your stomach like a ball of lead. But it is fuel. You gnaw on the crust, your jaw aching for the effort, your eyes watering from the cold. You manage to consume maybe half the loaf before your body temperature drops too low to continue the thawing process. You put the rock back in your bag. You are still hungry, but at least your stomach has something to work on. But the dry bread has created a new problem. It has soaked up the little moisture left in your mouth. You are suddenly, devastatingly thirsty. And you are surrounded by millions of tons of water in the form of snow. It looks so easy. Just eat the snow, right? Wrong. Eating snow out here is a gamble where the house always wins, and the payout is a slow, freezing death from the inside out.
You are standing in the middle of an ocean, a frozen, white, endless ocean. Water is literally the only thing you can see from miles, and yet you are dying of thirst. The dry Arctic air has been sucking the moisture out of your lungs with every breath, and that rock-hard bread acted like a desiccant, absorbing the last few drops of saliva you had. Your throat feels like it is coated in sandpaper. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. The urge to just drop to your knees and shove a handful of snow into your mouth is overwhelming. It is a primal instinct. But in the Winter War, instinct is a liar. Eating snow at minus 40 degrees is not hydration. It is thermal suicide. Think about the physics. That snow isn't just cold water. It is a solid mass of ice crystals sitting at 40 degrees below zero. To turn that into water your body can actually use, your internal furnace has to heat it up by nearly 80 degrees just to reach body temperature. That requires energy. Massive amounts of caloric energy, energy that you do not have. Every mouthful of snow you swallow is a tax payment made directly from your core body heat. You are essentially trading your life force for a sip of water. But the thirst is unbearable. It overrides logic. So you compromise. You take a tiny pinch of snow, just enough to wet your tongue. The moment it touches your lips, it burns. It doesn't feel cold. It feels like acid. The skin on your lips instantly bonds to the ice crystals, tearing away a layer of flesh as you try to work it into your mouth. Your teeth ache with a sharp, throbbing pain that radiates into your jawbone. You swirl the grit around, waiting for it to melt, and when you finally swallow, you feel the icy track of the water sliding down your esophagus, extinguishing the warmth in your chest like a bucket of water on a campfire. Your stomach rebels immediately. It cramps, seizing up around the freezing intrusion. The cold radiates outward from your gut, chilling your blood from the inside. Within minutes, the shivering starts, not the gentle shivers of a chilly autumn evening, but violent, full-body spasms that rattle your bones and make it impossible to hold your rifle steady. Your body is screaming at you, burning through its last reserves of glucose to reheat your internal organs before they shut down. You have quenched your thirst, but you have brought yourself one step closer to hypothermia. You can't build a fire to melt the snow. Smoke is a death sentence. You can't carry liquid water. Canteens freeze solid in an hour, bursting the metal seams. So, you become the stove. You pack snow into a flask and shove it inside your tunic, right against your bare skin, maybe under your armpit or against your stomach. Now, you just wait. You let the metal flask suck the heat directly out of your skin. It is a slow, agonizing torture, feeling that block of ice leaching warmth from your body, turning your skin waxy and numb. After an hour of shivering, you pull out the flask. You have managed to create maybe 2 mouthfuls of tepid, metallic-tasting water. You drink it greedily, hating yourself for how good it tastes, knowing it wasn't enough. The thirst is duller, but the cold is sharper. The shivering won't stop. Your energy is gone. You need fuel. You need a fire inside you, since you can't have one outside.
And since you cannot cook, you reach for the only thing that provides instant, raw energy without smoke or preparation. A tiny white cube that is about to become the most delicious meal of your life.
You look at your mess kit. It's a simple, blackened aluminum tin that has seen better days. Inside your pack, you might even have a tin of pork fat or a frozen puck of pea soup. In any other war, you would gather some twigs, strike a match, and have a hot meal. But here, the simple act of cooking is a complex form of suicide. Think about the physics of smoke in a frozen landscape. The air is still, dense, and incredibly clear. If you light a fire, the smoke doesn't just dissipate into the ether. It rises in a perfect dark gray column, a vertical line of ink drawn against a canvas of white snow and gray sky. It is visible for miles. To a Soviet artillery spotter, that thin wisp of smoke isn't a sign of dinner. It's a coordinate. It is a finger pointing down from the heavens saying, "Drop the mortar shell right here." And even if you could hide the smoke, you can't hide the smell. In the sterile, odorless freezer of the Arctic, the scent of burning wood or heating meat travels like a shockwave. The enemy is starving too. If they smell pork, they won't just shell you. They will hunt you down out of sheer caloric envy. So the fire stays unlit, the soup stays frozen, and you stay hungry. You reach into your tunic pocket, your fingers brushing against lint and cold ammunition, until you find it. A small, square, rough-edged lump. A sugar cube. It is likely dirty, covered in pocket grit and possibly stained with gun oil. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You don't have a balanced diet. You have a pocketful of pure, crystallized energy. This isn't a treat. It is tactical fuel. You pop the cube into your mouth. You don't suck on it gently. You crunch it. The sound of the sugar shattering between your frozen molars is deafening in your own skull. It tastes like pure, unadulterated electricity. There is no nuance, no flavor profile, just a raw spike of glucose hitting your tongue. Because your body is in a state of starvation ketosis, the reaction is almost immediate. You can practically feel the sugar dissolving, entering your bloodstream and rushing to your brain. For about 15 minutes, the world changes. The gray edges of your vision sharpen. The shivering subsides just a fraction. You feel a sudden manic surge of alertness. It's a chemical high, a desperate attempt by your metabolism to keep the lights on. You eat another cube, and another. You are running your biological engine on jet fuel, bypassing digestion entirely for the sake of immediate heat. But then the crash comes. Sugar is a liar. It gives you a burst, but it has no substance. It burns hot and fast, like a piece of paper thrown into a furnace, leaving no coals behind. Within an hour, the energy evaporates. The cold comes rushing back in, harder than before. Your blood sugar plummets, leaving you shaky, irritable, and with a hollow ache in your stomach that feels like you've swallowed a vacuum cleaner. You are now vibrating with a mix of caffeine-like jitters and hypothermic tremors. Your stomach gurgles. It is a loud, wet, unhappy sound. The frozen bread you gnawed on earlier, the ice water you melted in your gut, and the raw sugar cubes are all mixing together in your intestines, creating a biological disaster zone. Your body, confused by the extreme cold and the strange diet, decides it wants to process this mess right now. And you realize with a fresh wave of absolute horror that you have to go to the bathroom. You are wearing 4 layers of heavy wool, a white camouflage suit, and a webbing belt.
You are lying in a snowdrift at -40 degrees, and you have to expose your most vulnerable parts to the air.
In civilization, a bathroom break is a pause. It is a moment of privacy. Here, in the frozen forests of Karelia, it is a high-stakes tactical operation with a high probability of death. Your stomach is cramping violently, the sugar and frozen bread waging a war in your gut. You have to go. But let's look at the logistics. You are encased in 4 layers of wool, a leather belt, and a canvas camouflage oversuit. To get to your skin, you have to undo buttons that are frozen shut, manipulate buckles with fingers that have no feeling, and slide down trousers that are stiff with ice. And you have to do all of this while lying flat on your stomach, because lifting your head means catching a bullet. You start the process. It is a frantic, clumsy wrestling match with your own clothing. You pry at the wooden buttons of your tunic, your nails cracking against the fabric. You shimmy and writhe, trying to pull your pants down without raising your hips above the snow line. It takes 5 minutes just to expose yourself, and then the air hits you. If you thought the cold on your face was bad, the cold on your nether regions is a spiritual violation. The moment your bare skin touches the -40-degree air, it feels like you have been branded with a hot iron. Your body instinctively recoils, muscles seizing up in shock, which is the exact opposite of what you need to happen right now. You are squatting precariously, balancing on numb toes, trying to do your business as fast as humanly possible before your backside gets frostbitten. But physics is, once again, your enemy. Waste is warm. The air is cold. The moment you relieve yourself, a massive, dense cloud of steam rises from the ground behind you. It is thicker and whiter than your breath. It plumes up into the still air, a literal smoke signal announcing your location to the world. You are terrified that a Russian spotter is going to see the vapor trail and call in a mortar strike on your toilet break. You have never felt more vulnerable in your life. Pants down, shivering, creating a weather event with your own bowels.
And then comes the cleanup. You obviously don't have toilet paper. You have snow. You grab a handful of the abrasive, icy powder and scrub. It is excruciating. It feels like using sandpaper made of glass shards. You are leaving your skin raw, wet, and freezing. You scramble to pull your layers back up, trapping the cold air and snow inside your trousers against your sensitive skin. You spend the next hour shivering violently, trying to reheat your own backside. But that is the best case scenario. That is what happens if you can move. What if you're pinned down? What if the enemy is 50 yards away and you cannot move a muscle without dying? Then you have to make the choice that breaks men. You just go. You lie there in the snow and you soil yourself. For a few seconds, it is blissfully, disgustingly warm. The heat spreads through your wool layers, a fleeting comfort in the frozen hell. But then the laws of thermodynamics take over. The waste begins to cool, then it begins to freeze. Within 20 minutes, you are no longer lying in a mess. You are lying in a block of toxic ice that has molded itself to your body. It is heavy, it is hard, and it burns. The frozen matter chafes your skin raw, inviting infection, trench foot, and gangrene. The smell, acrid and sharp in the clean air, clings to you, making you feel less like a soldier and more like a dying animal. You lie there, humiliated, frozen, and smelling of your own failure, and you think about how much you would give for just one moment of warmth. You remember the small glass flask in your pocket, the vodka, the Molotov cocktail fuel, the liquid courage. It promises heat. It promises to make the shivering stop. It promises to make you feel human again. But the bottle is a liar. It is the most dangerous trap in the forest. And if you take a sip, you are as good as dead.
You pull the flask from your pocket. The glass is cold enough to burn your fingertips through your gloves, but the liquid inside is still fluid. It is vodka, or maybe schnapps, or maybe just industrial ethanol looted from a supply truck. It doesn't matter. In this frozen wasteland, it is the only thing that isn't solid ice. You unscrew the cap with your teeth, your hands shaking too violently to grip it, and you take a swig. The effect is instantaneous. It feels like you have just swallowed a glowing coal. The liquid burns a path down your throat, searing the mucous membranes, and lands in your stomach with a heavy, radiating heat. For the first time in days, the knot of ice in your gut loosens. A glorious, tingling warmth spreads outward from your chest. It rushes to your face, flushing your cheeks. It flows down your arms, making your numb fingers tingle with life. You stop shivering. You let out a long, satisfied breath that doesn't shudder. You feel saved. You feel human. But you are wrong. You have just committed biological treason. Alcohol is a master of deception. It doesn't add heat to your body. It relocates it. It acts as a vasodilator, which is a fancy medical term for opening the windows in a heated house during a blizzard. Your body, in its wisdom, has been keeping all your warm blood deep in your core to protect your heart, lungs, and brain. That is why your fingers and toes hurt. Your body is sacrificing the suburbs to save the city center. That rush of warmth you feel, that is your precious, life-sustaining core blood rushing to the surface of your skin. You feel warm because your nerve endings are in your skin, and suddenly they are bathed in hot blood. But now, that hot blood is separated from the -40-degree air by nothing but a thin layer of flesh and a dirty wool tunic. You are essentially turning yourself into a human radiator, venting your body's limited heat supply directly into the Arctic atmosphere. The warmth is a hallucination of safety. While your cheeks feel toasty, your internal organs are plunging into the danger zone. Your core temperature drops like a stone. And the worst part? You don't feel it happening. The alcohol dulls your senses. It suppresses the shivering reflex, which is the only way your body knows how to generate heat. You stop shivering, not because you are warm, but because your body has been tricked into thinking the emergency is over. You start to feel drowsy. The panic of the last few hours fades into a soft, fuzzy indifference. The snow doesn't look so hard anymore. It looks like a soft, white featherbed. You think, maybe I'll just close my eyes for a minute, just to enjoy the buzz. That is the voice of the White Death. If you listen to it, you die. You will drift off into a stupor, your heart rate slowing until it simply stops, frozen mid-beat. You will be found in the spring, a peaceful, frozen statue with a half-empty flask in your pocket. You realize this just in time. The terror cuts through the haze. You cap the bottle and shove it deep into your pack, swearing never to touch it again until you are inside a sauna. The false warmth fades, replaced by a cold that is infinitely sharper and more biting than before. You scramble to get your gear together, your movements jerky and uncoordinated. In your haste, you forget the golden rule of the Arctic. You reach out to grab your rifle to steady yourself, but you forget that you took your glove off to handle the flask. Your bare, sweaty palm slaps against the exposed steel of the barrel, and instantly you know you have made a mistake that is going to cost you a piece of yourself. You grab the barrel. It isn't a grip. It is a weld. In the civilian world, you might have heard the playground warning about licking a frozen flagpole. You probably laughed at the kid who got stuck. But out here, with a rifle made of industrial steel sitting at 40 degrees below zero, the physics are much faster and much more violent. The moment your damp, sweaty palm makes contact with the dry metal, the moisture in your pores flash freezes. It turns into a microscopic layer of high-strength ice adhesive that bonds your epidermis to the weapon instantly. Your brain processes this information incorrectly. It doesn't scream cold, it screams fire. The thermal conductivity of steel is so efficient that it sucks the heat out of your hand faster than your nerves can transmit the signal. It feels like you have just grabbed a red-hot poker fresh from the forge. The shock is absolute. Your instinct, the lizard brain reaction that has kept your ancestors alive for thousands of years, screams one command: let go. And that is the second mistake. If you had the presence of mind and the bladder control, you might have been able to urinate on your hand to melt the bond, or maybe poured some warm tea on it, if you had any. But you don't think. You panic. You yank your hand back with a violent jerk. The rifle stays heavy and immobile in the snow. Your hand comes free, but not all of it. There is a sound, a wet, tearing sound, like peeling the skin off a ripe peach. You look down at your rifle. There, frozen onto the dark blue steel of the barrel, is a ragged patch of grayish-pink tissue. It is the top 3 layers of your palm. It looks like a scrap of wet parchment paper. You have literally left a piece of yourself on the weapon. You look at your hand. For a second, there is no blood. The extreme cold has cauterized the capillaries instantly. You are staring at the raw, red meat of your own dermis, steaming in the frigid air. Then the pain arrives. It hits you in a sickening wave, a throbbing, stinging agony that makes your vision blur. The air bites into the exposed flesh like a million tiny piranhas. The nerves are laid bare, unprotected, screaming at the temperature. You try to curl your fingers into a fist to protect the wound, but the skin on the back of your hand is so tight from the cold that your knuckles crack. You are trapped in a cycle of agony. Open your hand, and the raw flesh burns. Close your hand, and the frozen skin tears. You have to cover it. You fumble for your glove, the one you foolishly took off. You shove your raw, bleeding hand back into the wool and leather. The friction of the rough fabric against the open wound is blinding. It feels like scrubbing a burn with steel wool. You bite your lips so hard you taste copper, stifling a scream that would give away your position. You are now effectively crippled. You cannot grip your rifle properly. You cannot work the bolt action without wincing. Your trigger hand is a throbbing lump of misery. And the worst part? The blood is starting to flow now. The heat of the inflammation is melting the ice seal on your capillaries. Your glove is filling with warm, sticky fluid. In any other climate, this would just be messy. In the Arctic, wet gloves mean frostbite. The blood will cool, then it will freeze, turning your glove into a cast of red ice that encases your fingers. You have traded a layer of skin for a ticket to the amputation ward. You cradle your mangled hand against your chest, trying to use your body heat to keep the blood liquid, rocking back and forth in the snow. You think this is the worst it can get. You think that losing some skin is the peak of body horror. But you are wrong. Skin grows back. What is happening to your feet, silently inside those frozen boots, is much more permanent. You haven't wiggled your toes in 20 minutes. You try to do it now, and you realize with a jolt of pure nausea that you can't feel them at all. The tingle is gone, the pain is gone, and the blackening has begun.
You send the command from your brain, move the big toe. It is a simple request. You have done it millions of times. But this time, the signal goes down your leg, hits your ankle, and vanishes into the void. There is no response, no twitch, no sensation. It is like trying to dial a phone number for a house that burned down 3 weeks ago. The line is dead. This is the true horror of frostbite. It isn't the pain, it is the peace. An hour ago, your feet were screaming. They were throbbing, burning, and aching with a cold so intense it made you want to vomit. That was good. That was your nerves fighting for their lives. That was your body screaming, "Help me." But now there is only silence. The nerves have frozen. They have died. Your feet have effectively resigned from the business of being part of your body. Inside your boots, which have frozen into shape around your feet like iron casts, a grim biological process is finishing its work. The blood vessels in your extremities, constricted for hours to save your heart, have collapsed. The fluids inside your cells have crystallized. Your toes are no longer flesh and blood. They are meat popsicles. If you were to take your boot off right now, which you absolutely should not do, you would see the skin has turned a hard, waxy white, like old candle tallow. It looks artificial. It looks dead. And if you survive this, if you make it back to a field hospital, that white wax will turn purple. Then it will blister, filling with dark, foul-smelling fluid. And finally, it will turn black. Hard, dry, charcoal black. The dead tissue will eventually just snap off, like a dry twig. You are currently lying in the snow, realizing that you might be leaving this forest a little lighter than when you entered it. You try to shift your weight, and your feet feel like wooden blocks attached to the ends of your legs. You clump them together, desperate for a spark of feeling, but you just feel the vibration in your shins. You are now compromised in a way that is hard to process. You cannot run. If the Russians charge, you will be stumbling on stumps. You cannot feel the ground, so you don't know if you are slipping. You are anchored to this spot by your own dying limbs. And while your feet have gone quiet, the rest of your body realizes that the core temperature is dropping into the danger zone. It decides to take emergency action. It stops being subtle. It engages the final defense mechanism, a violent full-body earthquake that will make aiming your rifle impossible. The shakes are coming.
Your body has declared mutiny. It no longer cares about your mission, your rank, or the Soviet patrol moving through the trees. It cares about one thing: thermodynamics. Your core temperature has dropped below the threshold of safety, and your hypothalamus has pulled the emergency lever. The result is not a gentle tremble. It is a biological earthquake. It starts in your solar plexus, a deep rhythmic thrumming that feels like you have swallowed a generator. It radiates outward, seizing your abdominal muscles, then your shoulders, and finally your arms. You are not just shaking, you are vibrating. Your muscles are rapidly contracting and relaxing in a desperate attempt to generate friction heat. It is a violent, jerky spasm that you cannot control, cannot stop, and cannot aim through. You try to look down the barrel of your rifle. A minute ago, the iron sight was a steady black post. Now it is dancing a frantic jig. The enemy soldier in your sight picture isn't walking, he is bouncing. Your barrel is drawing figure eights in the air. If you pulled the trigger now, you wouldn't hit the target. You'd hit the snow, the sky, or the tree 3 feet to his left. You are holding a precision instrument, but your hands are acting like they are operating a jackhammer. You try to fight it. You tense up, clenching every muscle in your body to force them into stillness. This is a mistake. Fighting the shivers only makes them more violent. The tension locks your limbs, but the vibration continues, now at a higher frequency. Your teeth start to chatter. It is a loud, rhythmic clack, clack, clack that sounds obscenely loud inside your own skull. It sounds like someone shaking a bag of dice. You bite down on your lip hard, just to silence the noise, tasting the copper tang of your own blood as you grind your molars together. This is the sniper's paradox. To shoot accurately, you need to be relaxed. To survive the cold, your body needs to be in a state of high-tension chaos. You have to find the gap, the split second between the spasms. You learn to ride the wave of the shivers. There is a moment, a tiny fraction of a second right at the bottom of the exhale, where the body pauses before the next round of shaking begins. You have to live in that millisecond. You have to synchronize your trigger finger with that fleeting moment of peace. But the cost of this shivering is catastrophic. Shivering is exercise. It burns calories at an alarming rate. You were already starving, running on frozen bread and sugar cubes, and now your body is burning its last reserves of glycogen just to keep you warm. You are literally eating yourself alive. You feel the exhaustion seeping into your bones, a heavy, gray fatigue that makes your eyelids droop. The shaking is exhausting you to the point of collapse, but if you stop shaking, it means you have entered the final stage of hypothermia, where you simply drift away. So you let yourself shake. You let your rifle wobble. You wait for that one perfect moment of stillness, and when you find it, you take the shot. The rifle cracks, the recoil punches your frozen shoulder, and downrange, a figure drops into the white powder. But now, the silence is broken. The violence has started. And in this pristine, monochromatic world of white snow and gray sky, you are about to introduce a new color. A color that is startlingly, horrifically bright. The snow is about to turn red.
The shot echoes, a flat, cracking sound that is swallowed almost instantly by the dense forest. Downrange, the figure in the brown coat crumples. And then, you see it. In a world defined by 50 shades of gray and an infinity of white, the sudden appearance of bright, arterial crimson is shocking. It looks fake. It looks like someone just splashed a bucket of neon paint onto a blank canvas. It is the only vibrant thing in the entire landscape, and it is beautiful in a sickening, mesmerizing way. But in the Arctic, blood does not behave like blood. It behaves like molten lava hitting the ocean. In a temperate war, blood flows. It soaks into the mud, it stains uniforms, it pools in the dirt. Here, the temperature differential between the fluid and the air is nearly 80 degrees Celsius. The moment that hot, iron-rich liquid hits the minus 40-degree air, it doesn't just drip, it steams. A violent pink mist erupts from the wound, a cloud of vapor that hangs over the body like a spirit leaving the corpse. It is a beacon of heat in a world of ice, visible for miles to anyone with thermal optics or just a good pair of eyes. When the blood hits the snow, it doesn't soak in. The snow is too hard, too packed. Instead, the heat of the blood melts a tiny momentary crater, a little cup in the ice. And then, physics takes its toll. The blood flash freezes. It doesn't coagulate slowly, it turns into a solid. Within seconds, what should be a pool of liquid becomes a jagged red coral reef. It turns into a slush, then a sorbet, and finally, a hard, crystalline stone. If you were to walk over to that body, which you won't, because that's suicide, you would find that the blood has frozen so hard you could snap it off the uniform like a piece of brittle plastic.
This has terrifying implications if the blood is yours. If you take a graze, or a piece of shrapnel nicks you,
You don't just bleed, you freeze. The blood soaking into your wool layers turns into a rigid, icy plate. It bonds your clothes to your skin. It seals the wound, yes. The cold is an excellent, if brutal, tourniquet. But it also traps the bacteria and the dirt inside a frozen capsule against your raw flesh. If you try to undress later to treat the wound, you will have to thaw the fabric off your body, ripping away the scab and restarting the bleeding all over again. And the smell. You wouldn't think blood has a smell in the cold, but it does. It smells hot. It smells like a handful of wet pennies, a sharp, metallic tang that cuts through the crisp, sterile air of the forest. It triggers a primal part of your brain, the part that remembers when humans were prey. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, even under your scarf. You stare at the red splash on the white snow. It is so bright, so vivid, that it starts to burn an afterimage into your retinas. You blink, and you see green spots dancing in your vision. The contrast is too much for your tired, sensory-deprived brain to handle. You have been staring at nothingness for hours, and this sudden introduction of color, heat, and death acts like a fracture in your reality. You start to stare at it too long. The red shape seems to move. It seems to pulse. You shake your head, trying to clear the cobwebs, but they won't leave. The exhaustion, the sugar crash, the hypothermia, and now the visual shock of the violence, it is all combining into a dangerous cocktail. Your mind is looking for an escape hatch. It wants to leave this frozen forest, and since it can't physically leave, it decides to leave mentally. You aren't just seeing blood anymore. You are seeing things that cannot possibly exist. The forest is about to get a lot more crowded, and the things you are seeing are going to promise you the one thing you want more than life itself: warmth.
The first shell doesn't hit the ground, it hits the canopy. In the open fields of France or the deserts of Africa, artillery is about the blast radius on the earth. In the frozen forests of Finland, artillery is about the ceiling falling on your head. The shell fuses are set for tree bursts. They slam into the frozen tops of the pines 50 feet above you and detonate instantly. The result is a rain of terror that defies description. It isn't just hot steel raining down, it is the forest itself turning against you. The giant spruce trees, frozen solid at 40 below, don't bend or splinter like green wood. They shatter. They explode like glass. Massive, jagged spears of timber, some the size of your arm, others the size of a toothpick, are hurled downward at supersonic speeds. You are lying in your snow hole, face pressed into the ice, listening to the world disintegrate. You hear the thump, thump, thump of the distant Soviet howitzers, a dull, rhythmic drumming like a giant beating a carpet. Then a few seconds of silence as the shells arc through the stratosphere. And then the arrival. It sounds like the sky is cracking open. The noise is physical. It punches you in the chest, rattling your teeth in your skull. The shock wave hits the snow, lifting you slightly off the ground and slamming you back down. The air pressure changes so violently that your ears pop, and for a moment, you are deaf. In that silence, you feel the debris hitting your back, clumps of frozen dirt, hot metal fragments, and razor-sharp wood splinters rain down on you. You curl tighter, trying to pull your limbs inside your own rib cage, trying to make yourself smaller than physics allows. The snow, once pristine and white, is instantly ruined. The explosions kick up tons of dirt and soot, turning the air into a gray, choking fog. The beautiful, silent forest is gone. It has been replaced by a chaotic, screaming, churning machine of mud and fire. And you are trapped in the middle of it. You cannot run. Running in waist-deep snow is like trying to run in a nightmare. You move in slow motion while the death around you moves at the speed of sound. You cannot dig deeper. The ground is still iron. You are essentially lying on a serving platter, waiting to see if the god of ballistics is hungry. There is a specific smell to an artillery barrage in winter. It smells of cordite, that sharp, acrid scent of burnt explosives mixed with the smell of pulverized pine resin. It smells like a sawmill that caught fire. It sticks to the back of your throat, coating your tongue with a chemical taste that you can't spit out. You are breathing in the destruction of your shelter. And the cold? The cold hasn't left. In fact, it has weaponized the explosions. The heat from the blasts melts the snow instantly, creating pockets of water and slush. If you are close enough to a blast to survive, but get splashed, that water lands on you and immediately refreezes. You are now being coated in a layer of dirty, blast-hardened ice. You are shivering uncontrollably, your body convulsing with fear and hypothermia, your mind fracturing under the noise. You realize that this is what the hunt was really about. You weren't the hunter, you were just bait. You were the tripwire that triggered this annihilation. The Soviets don't care about hitting you specifically. They are deleting the grid square. They are erasing the geography. You are just a soft bag of water and bones in a sector marked for demolition. Eventually, the rhythm slows. The shells stop falling. The ringing in your ears is replaced by a high-pitched whine. You lift your head, shaking off a layer of dirt and wood chips. The forest is unrecognizable. Trees are sheared off halfway up, looking like broken teeth. Craters smoke in the snow. You check your limbs. You seem intact. But then you hear a new sound. It isn't the boom of a cannon. It is the sharp, angry crack of a sniper rifle. The artillery was just the opening act. It was meant to flush you out, to make you move, to make you panic. Now that the smoke is clearing, the real killers are watching. And they are using ammunition designed to do things to the human body that shouldn't be possible. You hear the crack. It is distinct, sharper than the dull boom of the mortars. It sounds like a whip cracking right next to your ear. And then you hear the impact. To your left, a sapling simply disintegrates. It doesn't snap. It shatters into a cloud of splinters. This isn't normal ballistics. If this were a standard copper-jacketed bullet, it would have punched a neat hole through the wood. But this is something else. This is the Soviet PZ explosive bullet. In the polite drawing rooms of international diplomacy, these bullets are technically forbidden for use against infantry. They're designed for shooting at airplanes or fuel tanks. But here, in the lawless vacuum of the Winter War, the Geneva Convention is just a piece of paper frozen in a desk drawer 1,000 miles away. The Soviets are loading their Mosin Nagins with ammunition that contains a tiny pressure-sensitive striker and a core of high explosive. They aren't firing lead at you. They are firing miniature grenades. This changes the entire calculus of survival. In a normal war, you can survive a mistake. If a standard bullet hits you in the shoulder, it drills a channel. It hurts, it bleeds, but if it misses the artery in the bone, you get a bandage, a morphine shot, and a ticket home. A clean through and through is $1 million wound. But with an exploding bullet, there are no clean wounds. There are only craters. The physics of it are nauseating. The bullet enters your body like a standard projectile, piercing the layers of wool and white camouflage. But the moment it hits resistance, muscle, bone, or even thick cartilage, the striker is driven back into the explosive core. The bullet detonates inside you. It doesn't just pass through, it expands violently, converting your own tissues into shrapnel. A hit to the bicep doesn't leave a hole, it effectively amputates the arm. A hit to the thigh doesn't break the femur, it pulverizes the bone into dust and turns the muscle into a pink mist. You press your face into the snow, trying to become two-dimensional. You can hear the rounds snapping overhead, impacting the trees behind you. Every time one hits a branch, there is a small pop and a puff of smoke. It is a psychological terror of the highest order. You know that you cannot rely on covering the way you used to. A standard bullet might lose energy passing through a log. These bullets explode on contact with the log, blowing splinters into your face, blinding you, shredding your skin. The forest itself is being weaponized against you.
The fear isn't just about dying. It is about what you will look like if you don't die immediately. You have seen the bodies of men hit by these things. They don't look like fallen soldiers. They look like they were attacked by wild animals. The exit wounds are the size of dinner plates. The shock of the internal explosion liquefies organs that weren't even in the path of the bullet. It is a level of violence that the human mind struggles to process. You aren't afraid of the pain. The cold has already numbed you to that. You are afraid of the erasure. You are afraid of looking down and seeing that your leg ends at the knee in a ragged mess of steaming, frozen gore. And the steam, that is the visual signature of the exploding bullet. When it detonates inside a warm body in minus 40-degree air, the release of heat and vapor is massive. A man hit by one of these doesn't just fall, he smokes. For a few seconds, he becomes a chimney, venting the heat of his own destruction into the gray sky. It is a grotesque signal fire that tells everyone watching exactly what just happened. You are lying there, pinned down, knowing that the sniper watching you is waiting for just one mistake, one lift of the head, one shift of the elbow. He isn't trying to suppress you, he is trying to dismantle you. You can hear the crack pop rhythm getting closer. He is walking his fire towards you, testing the snowdrifts, looking for the soft spot where you are hiding. You have to move. You have to return fire. But you know that the moment you rise up to take your shot, you are exposing your face to that explosive chemistry. And then it happens. You don't hear the shot that gets you. That is the old cliché, and it is true. The bullet travels faster than sound. You lift your head just an inch to sight your rifle, and the universe turns into a white flash. You don't feel pain, not yet. You feel an impact like a sledgehammer swinging at full velocity, connecting directly with your jaw. The world spins, the sky and the snow swapping places, and you hit the ground hard. You are alive, but the silence has returned. And when you reach up to touch your face, your glove comes away wet, heavy, and horrified.
You are lying on your back, staring up at the gray, indifferent sky. The ringing in your ears is deafening, a high-pitched scream that drowns out the wind, the artillery, and your own thoughts. You try to take a breath, but you choke. Your mouth fills with something warm and metallic. You instinctively turn your head to the side to clear your airway, and a slush of blood and broken teeth spills out onto the pristine snow. You bring your hand up again. You have to know. You peel your glove off, disregarding the cold, and touch your face. Your fingers don't find a chin. They find a wet, jagged crater. The exploding bullet didn't just break your jaw, it erased it. The lower half of your face has been turned into a ruin of shredded muscle and bone splinters. You try to scream, a primal reflex to the horror, but the sound that comes out is a wet, gurgling rasp. The mechanics required to scream, the hinge of the jaw, the seal of the lips, are gone. Then the pain arrives. It doesn't creep up on you. It crashes down like an avalanche. It is a blinding, white-hot agony that radiates from your face down to your toes. It feels like someone has shoved a lit torch into your mouth and left it there. Your vision tunnels. You want to curl up and die right there. It would be so easy. The snow is already cradling you. The cold is already waiting to embrace you. But you don't die. The survival instinct is a cruel master. It grabs you by the scruff of your neck and forces you to sit up. You are dizzy, your head swimming from the concussion, but you know one thing. If you stay here, the next bullet won't miss. You have to move. You push yourself up on trembling arms. Your rifle lies in the snow, useless to you now. You leave it. You are no longer a soldier. You are a casualty, trying to become a survivor. You stand up. The world tilts on its axis. You stumble, catching yourself on a tree. You look down at your chest. Your white camouflage suit is soaked in red. It looks like a butcher's apron. The blood is pouring out of you, steaming in the frigid air, running down your neck and freezing inside your collar. But here is the twisted mercy of the Arctic. The cold is saving your life. The minus 40-degree air acts as a brutal, instantaneous cauterizing agent. The blood freezing on your skin forms a shell, a grotesque mask of red ice that stems the flow just enough to keep your heart pumping. You start to walk. You don't know where safe is, but you know where the bullets came from, so you walk the other way. Every step sends a jolt of agony through your skull. You are leaving a trail of red droplets in the snow, a breadcrumb path for the reaper. The forest seems endless. The trees all look the same. You are hallucinating again, but this time it isn't warmth you see, it is monsters. The shadows stretch and twist into Soviet soldiers. The wind sounds like voices whispering your name. You walk for what feels like days. It is probably only an hour. Your legs are heavy, leaden weights dragging through the drifts. Your body is shutting down, shunting all resources to the catastrophic wound in your head. Your vision goes gray, then black at the edges. You are walking on autopilot, a zombie powered by sheer refusal to die in this for-God-saken woods. You see shapes ahead, not trees, geometric shapes, tents, smoke, friendly lines. You try to call out, to shout a password, but you just make a choking sound. You stumble into the clearing. Figures rush toward you. You see their eyes go wide with horror as they look at your face. You want to tell them you're okay, that you just need a doctor, but the ground rushes up to meet you. You hit the snow, and this time you don't try to get up. The lights go out. The pain finally stops. You have survived the bullet, the cold, and the walk. Now you just have to survive the sleep, because you are about to slip into a coma that will last for a week, and while you sleep, the war will end without you. You fall into the dark. It isn't sleep. Sleep is a biological function, a restorative pause. This is a system crash. Your brain, overwhelmed by the trauma of a shattered jaw and the shock of freezing blood, simply pulls the plug on your consciousness. You drop into a black, weightless ocean where time doesn't exist. There are no hours here, no minutes, no shift changes. There is only the void. While you float in this nothingness, your body is fighting a war just as brutal as the one you left in the forest. You are lying on a cot in a field hospital, surrounded by the smell of ether, iodine, and dying men. Surgeons are working over you, stitching together what remains of your face, picking bone splinters out of your tongue, and trying to figure out how a human being can lose half their lower mandible and still have a pulse. You don't feel their hands. You don't feel the needle. You are miles away, drifting in the deep. But the coma isn't empty. It is filled with the debris of your mind. You have fever dreams, vivid and terrifying hallucinations fueled by infection and morphine. You dream of the snow, but it's burning. You dream of the stove again, but this time you crawl inside it and the fire doesn't hurt. It just feels heavy. You hear sounds from the outside world, the clatter of a metal tray, the murmur of a nurse, the distant boom of artillery, and your broken brain remixes them into a nightmare soundtrack. The metal tray becomes the bolt of your rifle. The nurse's voice becomes the wind. The artillery becomes the heartbeat of the earth itself. Days pass. While you are locked in this dark room inside your own skull, the world outside is changing. The Soviet offensive grinds to a halt. Diplomats in warm rooms in Moscow are signing papers with expensive pens. Borders are being redrawn on maps, while you are still trying to remember how to breathe. You are missing the finale. You paid the ultimate price of admission, your face, your youth, your sanity, and you are sleeping through the end of the show. You entered this darkness on March 6th, a soldier in a desperate, losing war. The calendar turns. March 7th, March 8th. You are fed through a tube. Your body shivers, fighting the infection. March 10th, March 12th. The guns on the Karelian Isthmus are firing their final, spiteful salvos, expending ammunition just because they can. You twitch in your sleep, your finger curling around a phantom trigger, trying to take a shot that no longer matters. And then March 13th arrives. At 11 a.m., a strange thing happens. The noise stops. The artillery, which has been the background rhythm of your life for months, falls silent. The air raid sirens wind down. The rifles are lowered. A heavy, unnatural quiet settles over the front lines. It isn't the silence of the hunt, the silence of holding your breath before a kill. It is the silence of, it is finished. The peace of Moscow has been signed. Finland has lost land, but kept its independence. The war is over. And that is the moment you choose to wake up. It isn't a dramatic gasp for air like in the movies. It is a slow, painful ascent from the bottom of the ocean. The black water recedes. The first thing you feel is thirst. A dry, scratching thirst that tears at your throat. Then the smell. Not pine and snow anymore. Antiseptic, boiled cabbage, sickness. You open your eyes. The light is blinding, harsh, and yellow. Nothing like the gray gloom of the forest. You try to speak, to ask where you are, but your mouth is wired shut. A ruin of bandages and metal. You look around. You are in a bed. There are sheets, real fabric sheets. You are warm. For the first time in months, you are genuinely, completely warm. You see a nurse walking by. She looks tired. She sees you are awake, and she stops. She doesn't smile, but her shoulders slump with relief. She tells you the date. She tells you the news. The war ended this morning. You slept through the peace treaty. You survived the winter war by exactly 0 hours. You are alive, warm, and safe.
But as the anesthesia fades and the real pain begins to set in, you realize that survival has a price. You look in the mirror for the first time and you meet the stranger who is going to live the rest of your life.
The nurse hands you a small, oval hand mirror. It is heavy, framed in brass, a relic of a civilized world you forgot existed. Your hand, the one with the missing skin on the palm, trembles as you lift it. You take a breath, or at least you try to, but the air hisses through the gap where your cheek used to be. You look. The face staring back at you is not yours. The young man who walked into the forest 3 months ago is gone. He died in the snow. In his place is a stranger, a patchwork quilt of angry red scars, metal sutures, and swollen purple flesh. Your jaw is misaligned, held together by wire and hope. Your lip is a jagged line. One eye is swollen shut. You look like a monster from a folklore tale, a creature constructed out of battlefield debris. You try to smile, a reflex to reassure the nurse, but the mirror shows only a gruesome grimace. You realize, with a heavy, sinking weight in your chest, that you will never look normal again. You will carry the winter war on your face for the rest of your life. Every time you walk down the street, people will stare. Children will hide behind their mother's legs. You are a hero, yes, but you are also a horror. You hand the mirror back. You close your eyes. You listen to the radiator in the corner of the room. It is hissing, pumping hot water through iron pipes, filling the room with a dry, dusty heat. The thermometer on the wall says it is 22 degrees Celsius. It is a tropical paradise compared to the Carolean Isthmus. But as you lie there, under the thick wool blankets, you realize something terrifying.
You are still cold. It isn't a surface chill. It isn't the kind of cold you can fix with a sweater. It is a phantom cold, lodged deep in the marrow of your bones, a ghost of the -40-degree nights that has moved in permanently. You feel a draft that isn't there. You feel the ice pressing against your kidneys. You realize that no matter how many blankets you pile on, no matter how close you sit to the fire, a part of you will always be lying in that snow hole, waiting for the Russian sniper. The frostbite on your soul doesn't heal. This is the victory. This is what you won. Finland keeps its independence. The borders shift a few miles west. The politicians in Helsinki and Moscow shake hands and drink champagne. And you? You get to go home. You get to limp back to a farm that might not exist anymore, with a face that scares your family and a set of lungs that will ache every time the winter wind blows. You survived the impossible. You outlasted the Red Army. You beat the White Death. But looking at the ceiling of the hospital ward, listening to the silence of peace, you wonder if survival is the right word. You didn't survive the cold. You just became part of it. So the next time you complain about the air conditioning being too high or the walk from your car to the front door being chilly, remember the men in the white sheets. Remember the sugar cubes, the frozen bread, and the silence of the spruce forest. Remember that there is a level of cold that doesn't just freeze water. It freezes time. It freezes history. And it freezes the human spirit. That's it for tonight's journey into the deep freeze. If you are safely tucked in bed, Pull that duvet a little tighter. Appreciate the warmth. It is a luxury, not a guarantee. If you enjoyed this frozen nightmare, hit the like button and subscribe for more bedtime stories that will absolutely ruin your sleep. Let me know in the comments if you'd have lasted an hour, or if you'd have surrendered to the warmth of the stove hallucination. Until next time, stay warm, stay awake, and sleep well.